D65 Board of Education special meeting for this evening. May we have a roll call, please?
Mark Berry, absent. Leanne Charlotte, present. Julie Gottschall, present. Richard Hay,
Present.
Philip Hood,
Present.
John Morrison,
Present.
Susan Ryder, absent.
We have a quorum. The purpose of the meeting, this is a public hearing concerning the intent of the School Board of Education to sell $5,750,000 in working cash fund bonds. So the hearing is being held for the purpose of explanation on the proposed bond issue and to allow persons desiring to be heard an opportunity to present written or oral testimony. So we will begin then with Jennifer Curran, Associate Vice President of PMA Securities, and you're going to give us a brief presentation. So you'll need to approach the podium and use the microphone, please. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for that introduction. I'm Jennifer. I work closely with Tammy Beckles-Shallow at PMA. I'm a senior analyst there, so I've been working with her on the district's financing and structuring the bonds. So this evening, we're just going to take a few minutes to review the financing. First off, we at PMA are serving as financial advisor to the district on the sale of the working cash bonds. Our public finance group was started a little over 10 years ago, and we've been the leading financial advisor in the state to K-12 districts in Illinois for each of the last 7 years. We feel that's just a testament to the level of service we provide. We're just hoping to make this as painless and transparent as possible for the district. So the district is planning to issue working cash fund bonds on a non-referendum basis. So annual debt service payments on non-referendum bonds have to fit within the district's debt service extension base, or DSEB. And that number, as of next year for tax year 2015, is going to be just shy of $368,000. And since 2009, pursuant to a public act, debt service extension bases for issuers can grow by CPI. We're assuming that that growth continues to be at a rate of 1.5% for the purpose of issuing these bonds. The bonds will be fixed rate bonds over just about 20 years with maturities from December of 2016 through 2034, and interest will be payable semi-annually, and that begins June 30 of next year. Okay. So on this slide, we just have the current debt of the school district. You can see in that orange column, that's the remaining debt service extension base margin. You can see it's all available because the district does not currently have non-referendum bonds outstanding. 3 outstanding issues are all related and trace back to a referendum. So this is just a visual representation of what the outstanding debt service looks like for the district. And then we follow with, on the blue columns on the left-hand side of this page, this is page 6, you see the proposed working cash bond financing. You see in the orange column that it soaks up that DSEB that's available to the district. And in doing so, we're estimating that proceeds to the district for project purposes ultimately would be about $5.38 million. That's given current market rates. And that translates into a true interest cost for the life of the bonds of 3.71%.
It's an annualized amount?
Yes. So again, a visual representation of this. The blue parts of the column would be the proposed working cash bonds. The red is what's already outstanding. So the debt service impact, the total estimated debt service that the district would be paying back on these approximately 5.7 or so million bonds would be 8.15 million. So for the median homeowner, that translates into a property tax increase of about $124 next year. Call features: the bonds maturing on and after December 30th of 2025 will be callable beginning in 2024. So that's when the district may be able to refund for savings if the market so allows. It all depends on where rates come in on the bonds this time, and then what rates actually look like in 2024. But that opportunity for savings would be available if the market so warrants. And the estimated amount of bonds out there that would be callable is about 3.6 million of that 5.7. 7. So a very substantial amount of them would be eligible for that type of refinancing.
Can we ask questions now? I have a question that's more of a clarification to a question I asked at the last meeting, but our intention here is to use a part of our fund balance to pay for this renovation. And since the total cost of the renovation is still somewhat unknown, it's somewhere between 6 and 9 million, that's the latest estimate. But let's make an assumption that the cost ends up being roughly 7 million. And right now we have, stick with me here, we have about 10 million in fund balance. If we intend to retain 30% of that, which is our minimum by policy, it gives us another 5 million available for this project. So if we use that 5 and it only costs 7, we're going to have 2 or 3 million left over at the end of this working bond. Can you give me a little bit of information on how we deal with that leftover, especially as it impacts the taxpayer?
Sure. Jay, I don't know if you wanted to touch on it.
I can help answer that. Because the majority of the bonds that we're issuing now are not callable for 10 years, we would not be able to take the $2 million and basically pay off these bonds early. However, we do have a significant amount of debt service outstanding currently. We'd be able to use those excess funds to pay off some of those other bonds, which happen to be a higher interest rate than these bonds and would be preferable to pay off early anyway.
So you could use the...
So if we have money left over, I mean, we have to, because these are tax exempt issues, we have to use them for building,
Okay.
but we would then use less fund balance. And if we chose to, we could either abate that fund balance and reduce our tax levy as a way to give money back to the taxpayer, or we could use that money to pay off existing debt that we borrowed on the elementary school, which is a higher interest rate, and reduce our interest costs at zero tax impact.
Can you remind us what's the rate on the existing?
They're variable rates. They're different bonds with different rates, but I want to say 5%.
I think they're less than that actually, but they do vary. So we have two options, and one is abatement potential, and the other is to pay down existing bonds.
Correct. Those bonds were not callable. I think they're callable after 2018, so we couldn't get any. In doing this project, we couldn't refinance those bonds in conjunction with this issue to gain savings because the call date was so far out. But it's still much nearer term than the 10 years that would be for this new debt. So in the next 2 years, we could pay those bonds off early.
Okay.
So just to be clear, what we can't do is not now go forward with the renovation, because once we have this 5 million on these bonds, we have to use that for construction. That's what you've said.
Right.
Okay.
Or either that, or we would pay a penalty for the tax benefits. I don't think we would. I think we would have to use it for the renovation, or there would be tax consequences to it.
We're committed now to doing the renovation once this bond goes through. What we could also do, in addition to an abatement or paying off some of the other bonds, I suppose, is just let the fund balance stay high. Right?
Mhm.
That would be an option. I'm not saying it's a palatable one, but that would be an option as well.
Well, with the uncertainty in the state's finances and with property taxes, all the different legislation that's out there, as well as pension cost shifts and things, it would be in the district's interest to maintain probably a larger cushion. We have that option every year to do something with it, so we can decide as year by year, as more certainty presents itself, whether or not we need to hold on to that money or whether we can return it to the taxpayers or whether there's some higher purpose for it.
Just right now we're bumping up against the top of our margin on that on our policy. So, we got almost 10 million in fund balance,
Right.
and we should be down around 5 or so.
But that window between 30 and 50 is not that large.
No, and we can always use the fund balance to abate as well as we did a couple of years ago. So.
Right, and that's an annual decision that we would get to make.
Okay. Thanks. Sorry.
No problem. So finally, the legal requirements as they relate to tonight's hearing. A notice of the board's intent to issue the working cash bonds was published on June 18th in the Lake County News Sun. If at least 10% of the registered voters within the district, which is 569 people, sign and submit a petition to the board by the 20th of next month, the board will not be able to issue the bonds on a non-referendum basis. So should you wish to proceed with the sale of working cash bonds at some point, then you would have to go to referendum for voter approval. Your earliest opportunity to do so is March 15th of next year. Okay. Any questions? You didn't hear? No?
Okay, thank you.
Any more? Thank you. Thank you.
Does the board, or do any of the board members present have any questions or would like to make a statement regarding this issue?
No. I think we move forward.
Okay. Leanne, can you read into the record any written testimony if we have received any?
We have not received any.
Okay. Next item on the agenda provides for members of the audience to come forward to the podium for public comment on the proposed issuance of these bonds. And if anyone intends to do that, please state your name for the record. Sure.
David Brown.
You
you have to
need to
go
come
to
up to the mic.
My name's David Brown. I just am curious why this didn't go to referendum and why it's just being ran through on such a short notice.
Actually,
You want me to go?
Sure.
actually, the question being why we are doing this on such short notice, we've really been working on this for over 2 years. We've been working with community members to talk about our priorities that are needed in the middle school. We've done 2 studies to find out what the middle school needed. So we're really at the end of the 2 years, and we've been publicizing everything all along on what we're planning on doing. Originally, based on one of the studies, we figured that it would be about $5 million to get done what we needed to get done, which we have in our fund balance. Based upon community priorities and things that have been set on our community engagement, our priorities have grown a little bit, and the cost is going to range now between $6 and $9 million, and we don't have that in our fund balance to pay for that.
Is there a cap on bonds that can be issued without a referendum, or can you do it at any amount that you deem?
There is, Jay, I'm going to have you answer that.
There is a cap. It was stated in the presentation where we have not issued any to date, and what we would be intending to do here is to issue up to that cap. The cap is different by school district, and it gets back to when the property tax caps were put into place. Whatever debt service each district had on the books at the time was basically the limit. And then that's been grown since 2009 by the Consumer Price Index. So we can issue debt service up to $367,000 a year, grown by CPI.
Now, I understand that, but I still didn't get a good answer as to why you didn't go to referendum if you did have 2 years, so you would have had time to put it on the ballot.
Maybe I'll try to throw in my opinion here. Originally, when we looked at this renovation, we were of the thoughts that it would range in the $3 to $5 million range, and we looked at it with the intent to improve safety and security issues primarily. And given that amount, we felt pretty strongly that we could use monies out of fund balance. That was our original intent, because our original fund balance, as you may recall, was $16 million. We refunded and restructured the old bonds. We saved $2.5 million to do that. And we felt that the remaining balance would allow us to do that. But as we moved through the process over the past 2 years, we discovered that, for a slightly larger amount of money, I mean, to taxpayers, you're talking about incremental $100 a year. It's like 2 cups of coffee a month at Starbucks, right? We could really do the job well and extend the life of the school out perhaps another 25 or 30 years. Now, there's still an opportunity if the community feels strongly enough. It is a time-consuming and arduous and expensive to a certain extent process, but if the community feels strongly enough about it, there's a process that can be brought forward that this can go to referendum.
Okay, just curious.
And I'm just curious about why you feel that it needs to go to referendum.
I don't have an opinion one way or another. I just felt that anything that was a large expenditure And this is obviously a large expenditure. You should have input of everybody who has to pay that bill, because we'll have to pay it for 20 years.
Absolutely,
So,
I agree.
you know, that's,
And we've tried to do that pretty intensively over the past 2 years. We've had many, many community meetings. I don't know, I'm not sure these aren't on the top of your list for TV viewing, but we've talked about this pretty incessantly over the last 6 months, almost monthly to a large extent. So it is out there, and all of us, me included, I wander around the community and talk to people I know, and I've actually pursued that question about whether they felt. You know, we're not, this isn't, it is a sizable amount of money, no question about it, but I think with the time frame involved and the amount of effort and work we would like to get done, this seemed like the best choice for us. If the community feels it's not the best choice, there are other options, obviously, and we do appreciate your input.
okay.
Thanks. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions or members of the audience that would like to make a comment? And thanks for your comments, by the way. I would like then, given the testimony, to have a motion that the hearing on the proposed issuance of bonds be, oh, I'm sorry. We need to adjourn the meeting. That's right.
Probably check one more time for public comments before I do that.
I'll check one more time for public comments. If there are none, then I would like to have a motion that the hearing on the proposed issuance of bonds be finally adjourned.
So moved.
Second?
And we will call.
Leanne Charlo, yes. Julie Gatshaw?
Yes.
Richard Haig?
Yes.
Philip Hood?
Yes.
John Morrison?
Yes. The meeting is adjourned. Now we're going to call it a second meeting, special Board of Education meeting, and we need to go through the same process again. So I will ask Leanne to have a roll call.
Okay. Mark Berry, absent. Leanne Charlo, present. Julie Gatshaw?
Present.
Richard Haig?
Present.
Philip Hood?
Present.
John Morrison?
Present.
Susan Ryder? Absent.
And we have a quorum. The purpose of this meeting is to discuss the approval of our laptop lease, which we went into quite some detail with at the last meeting, but Jay, you may want to give us a quick overview on what we're
Sure.
approving tonight.
The approval you have before you is the approval to purchase the computers. We have we purchase new computers on a cycle due to obsolescence, and we get new laptops for our staff every 4 years currently, and we also get new laptops for our 6th grade students who then carry them through middle school. And so the proposal you have is to replace those laptops. What we would do then, once we got the approval, is we would purchase the laptops, and upon receiving the invoice, we would submit that to a financial institution who we would then execute a lease with. We're still currently getting proposals for leases to try to get the best deal and negotiating the contract. So that lease document won't come to the board for approval until July. But it looks, it would be an operating lease on a fair market value basis, so we would be only leasing the useful life of the computer, meaning we would be paying for roughly 75 to 85% of the cost of the computer and financing that over the term at about roughly 2% interest rate. So it looks very attractive to the district, will enhance our cash flow, and should save us some money. And
From
give
a
us more
payback
flexibility.
perspective, it's more beneficial than purchasing computers. We went over this last time, I know. But
Yes, because when we purchase the computer, we pay 100% of that cost, and then at the end of the life of the computer, there are some expenses involved in selling the computer to get that value back out
Right.
of the computer. We're also considering different platforms, so this will give us some more flexibility. When we're done with the computers, we don't own them and have to get rid of them if we do want to switch to a different computer platform for cost or curricular reasons.
Okay. Are there any questions on the board?
What's the length of time on the lease?
The student laptops would be leased for 3 years, so that the kids would have them for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And then every year when a new 6th grade class would come in, they would get new computers, and we would lease those for 3 years. The staff laptops would be a 4-year lease, so at the end of 4 years, we would be getting new computers for the staff.
Okay, any questions? May I then have a motion to approve the purchase of new laptop computers up to $272,000 for staff and students, with an understanding that the district will enter into a fair market value operating lease to be brought for approval in July of this year, 2015.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Julie Gutschall.
Yes.
Richard Hack.
Yes.
Bill Hood.
Yes.
John Marsden.
Yes. And the motion is passed. May I now have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Can I make one
Sure.
comment really quickly? There will be a Q&A posted on our website at some point tomorrow, basically sharing the information in the presentation. The presentation will also be posted on the website tomorrow morning. So everything will be out there. And if there's ever any questions, please contact me or JCon, and we will get back to you as soon as we can.
This is on the bond issue, Jean?
Bond and the
And the
construction, just
Construction, right, but not police. We're going back to the
Right,
first meeting.
we're
Okay.
going back to the first meeting.
Actually, there will be questions and answers that we saw today, and number 14 on the list, and you may want to take a look at this. We asked ourselves the question, why are we not bringing the bonding issue to the community for referendum? And may elucidate on the matter a little bit better for you. Okay, well, we adjourned? No, we haven't. I asked for a motion. We have a
Do we have a motion for the adjournment?
So,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.